28 days into my federal prison sentence, I had a meeting with Miss Mickleberry, my case manager at Taft Prison Camp. About 4 minutes into the meeting, I asked if there was anything I could do to advance my release date. At the time, I didn't recognize or pick up the sarcasm, but she essentially said, "That's a big no. You can leave my office now. You'll be lucky if you get 45 days, halfway house time. Have a nice day." I then got up, left the room, went back to my cubicle, and thought, let's get back to work. Thankfully, for all of you watching, things have changed. Now, no one wants to go to federal prison, though, if there was ever a time to go to federal prison, this is the time. Now, I know COVID isn't great. Of course, it's awful. But those who have health related issues, many of them have obtained earlier release due to COVID by way of the compassionate release or administrative remedy process. So I know COVID can make time in prison difficult, though there are mechanisms to get out earlier because of COVID. And also the First Step Act, which is a really big deal. Now, last week, I filmed our first of what's going to be many videos. Our team has already written, I think, 10 or 11 blogs on the subject. We're going to be filming videos on every single one of them, including the video that I'm going to film today on earned time credits. So First Step Act is a really big deal. So of course, nobody wants to go to prison, but if there's a time to go, it's a good time because you've positioned with the right planning, you'll position yourself to get out more quickly. Before I dive into our trusted screen share, thank you all for visiting this channel at Prison Professors. My name is Justin Paperny. I am proudly a prison professor. Please like and subscribe. Just got back to the house after getting a haircut. This woman who cuts my hair is incredible. She sells me on so many products that I don't need. I've never had this much in my hair before. Does it look different than the other videos? My wife likes it, so I may keep it. Of course, I bought it. There's 9 of them stashed in the drawer that I've yet to use. I buy something every visit. Now that I've wasted 17 seconds of your life, let's get into the real stuff, the earned time credits of the First Step Act. So let's party. Okay. As we know, and as I discussed under these big developments last week, thousands of federal prisoners are getting released early because of the First Step Act. You'll notice in the last video I mentioned we don't use the word inmates unless it's written into the law. So I'm very grateful to Kayla, a valuable team member on our team. Is that redundant? Valuable team on our team for changing. Anytime we see the word inmate, changing it to prisoners. Kayla, you're awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. So thousands of prisoners are getting released under the earned time credits program of the First Step Act. As we know, finally, this has been implemented after more than 3 years. I would say our team has received 10,000 emails from our clients in prison and their family members over the years wondering, when will this get implemented? Is it funded? What does this mean? Why is the BOP slowing this down? We know why, of course, because they like to keep people in prison for as long as humanly possible, especially those first-time nonviolent offenders who don't need to be in prison, proven in part by how many people have gotten out of prison early due to COVID and the next to nothing recidivism rate. It proves the point that too many people are in prison for too long, but we like to lock up a lot of people in this country. Pardon my digression. Let's continue. Getting into the earned time credits, like with good days or good time credits, people earning First Step Act earned time credits must guard them zealously, understanding that the BOP can take these credits away. They're just not going to give you something, unless you're earning it, proving worthy of it. Any problems, any issues, much like the day you show up in prison, they give you good time, they can take that good time away. You're going to have to stay engaged in the programming to ensure that you get the credits that you deserve. It's too valuable and it's too important. I really want to stress that. So let's transition into our discussion. People in federal prison and those about to begin serving a federal prison sentence should be more optimistic than ever about influencing their release date, presuming they enroll in approved Bureau of Prisons programs and productive activities. Don't worry, in future videos, we're really going to dive into what does it mean to a productive activity? How do you quantify that? What is it? Is it listed yet? These programs are coming. They're going to be identifying them. The Bureau of Prisons knows this is a priority, and they know that stakeholders, senators, both Republicans and Democrats, are on them to implement this law as it was passed. And there's been a lot of turmoil at the BOP. As we know, the former, the acting head of the BOP technically retired, but he was all fired. He was fired, a career bureaucrat. We now have evidence that the BOP will award people's earned time credits under the First Step Act. Moreover, the Bureau of Prisons will follow, finally, the intent of Congress and apply earned time credit towards a person's early release from prison, halfway house, home confinement, or supervised release. Therefore, the incentives for people to be productive while serving a federal prison sentence have never been higher. As a reminder, I touched on this in our last video. When I was in prison, or my business partner, Michael Santos, who served 26 years in prison, it didn't matter what you did all day, at least to staff. So Michael would wake early and he would write and document the journey and mentor and teach and train and grow his network and develop his communication skills. I mean, no one worked harder, in my opinion. But that didn't get him out earlier, compared to the guy that was watching TV all day or walking the track. They were essentially treated the same with respect to the release date. Of course, both of them had different skill sets. You look at what Michael was able to accomplish in prison when he came home, working as a professor at San Francisco State, helping build our business, creating programs that influence hundreds of thousands of people a year in prisons and jails. But it all started with what Michael began to do when he was 23 in a county jail in 1987. The point is, if you're productive in prison, not only will you educate yourself and improve yourself, there are mechanisms to advance your release date or get home more quickly, which is what you all want. However, we must also acknowledge the reality that people can lose their earned time credits under certain circumstances, and how the Bureau of Prisons will handle loss and restoration of earned time credits remain to be seen. It was a couple of days ago, I spoke with a team member of ours, Sam Mangel, who called to tell me that we were just chatting, and he said someone who was in the 7th month of the residential drug abuse program was thrown out for violating a rule in the year that had been taken off the person's sentence. This was not a client of ours. He got a call from the prisoner's wife asking if our team could do something. The 7th month of RDAP, thrown out. They're not letting it back in. The year is being added back onto the sentence. He won't get as much halfway house time. So it does no good to get into these programs if you do not complete them. Loss of First Step Act earned time credits. People in federal prison can lose First Step Act earned time credits by violating the rules of an assigned program or productive activity. I mean, on the surface, could be pretty simple, right? Your class starts at 9, you show up at 11, there's coursework that you don't complete, you're just lazy, you're not committed to it, you're engaging in disciplinary infractions. I mean, some of the things are pretty obvious. Some will be more nuanced, and I have no doubt some people will get thrown out of some of these programs, perhaps because a case manager doesn't like them. They may do things that are off-putting to staff, may associate with the wrong people. So it's essential that you have a proactive prison adjustment, because that's going to make everything easier. The number of earned time credits lost depends on the severity of the rules violation, and a person must have a clear conduct for a year to restore those credits. That's a really big deal. So you're kind of off the grid for a year, jealous watching all the other prisoners enroll in this programming. And it's like, prison can be hard enough as it is, counting the time down to your release. Then you'll have a separate time clock regarding, okay, 9 months, 8 months, 7 years, 6 years, 6 months until I can get the restoration of those lost credits. It's just a nightmare. What is a good time credit and who is eligible? Good question. I'm really grateful that our team chose to answer the question in this blog, and I hope it helps all of you. Good time credit reduces a prisoner's actual time in BOP custody. Federal prisoners serving a sentence of more than 1 year, at least 12 months in a day, and less than life in prison are eligible to earn the good time credit. Fun fact for all of you, by the way, for all of you prison buffs out there, the reason someone gets 12 months in a day is because if you're sentenced to 12 months or more, you're eligible for good time, the 15% off of your sentence. If it's 12 months or less, you can still get halfway house and First Step Back credits, but you don't get the 15% good time. That's why the judges add the 1 day to the 12 months. A federal prisoner gets a maximum of 54 days per year of good days or good time credit for every year of their sentence, which amounts to a 15% reduction. This time off is sometimes called good conduct time because people earn it for good behavior or exemplary compliance with institutional disciplinary infractions. The truth is, the day you show up, they give it to you. They can only then take it back away if you get into some trouble. With that as a background, this is the actual provision regarding the loss of First Step Act earned time credits, which BOP modeled after the loss of the good time credit. Confusing, I'm throwing a lot at you. Bear with me, I'll explain it. Let's get into the loss of First Step Act time credits. Procedure for loss of credits. An inmate may lose credits for violation of the requirements or rules of a program. The procedure for loss of credits are described in 28 CFR Part 541. Now, I can't go through that whole thing here because you'll be drooling and sleeping and you'll pass out, and because it's too much and too long, and you're not going to like and subscribe to this video if I've put you to sleep. That's not cool. It's not great. What you should do is go to prisonprofessors.com, where we have all of this information. It's free. We're not going to try to sell you anything. It's free. Of course, if you'd like to speak with our team, we're here, but we have probably 1 million plus words of content on our website. So simply go to prisonprofessors.com. We have all of these blogs, links to all of these procedures and laws and everything that accompanies the First Step Act, sentencing mitigation, etc. How to appeal loss of First Step Act time credits. Prisoners, this is actually directly from the law. This is why the word inmate is there, not prisoners. Our team didn't write that. This is directly from the law. Inmates may seek a review of the loss of earned time credits through the Bureau's administrative remedy program. So administrative remedy is very important in prison. And in many ways, it's like a kangaroo court type process. You don't have a lawyer represent you through that process. And sometimes it's really hard to prevail, because essentially you're asking the prison to change a decision they had already made. It's kind of like a prison redesignation can be hard, because the Bureau of Prisons in Texas will say, well, we sent you here, we're not going to redesignate you. That would kind of mean that we were wrong. It happens, but the administrative remedy program is something that every new prisoner should understand, because it's the only way to kind of advance their interests while in custody. Complaining, having lawyers send letters to the warden probably won't get responded to, but it's not the way the system or program works. An inmate who has lost time credits under this regulation may have part or all of the credits restored to him or her on a case-by-case basis after clear conduct for 2 consecutive behavior clear of inmate disciplinary infractions for 2 consecutive risks and needs assessments conducted by the Bureau. So this kind of comes down to what I said a few minutes ago on a case-by-case basis, right? It's a very subjective process in prison. If a case manager likes you, or they feel you've adjusted well and you don't complain and you don't engage in the hustle, they're going to be more likely to reward or help you. But when you hear case by case, that means it's subjective, and you have human beings deciding what should happen to you. So for that reason, you got to have a proactive prison adjustment that does not have any problems, any drama. You can't do things that are dumb or stupid. And I know no one goes to prison with the idea they're going to do something dumb or stupid. That would be dumb. But sometimes what happens is people get comfortable. Like, I'm just continually itching my hand here. What happens is some people get complacent, and kind of like a diet. Like, you do a great for a month and it's like, oh, I'm going to have that cookie. Oh, it's going to be fine. And before you know it, it's like, hey, I put all the weight back on. So some people get a little complacent in prison. After 3 months, 6 months, or a year, they really feel like they understand that environment, and they can begin to manipulate it. Little do they know, Big Brother's always watching. They get caught. They read the emails that are saved. They listen to a phone call that are recorded. They can read mail. Before you know it, it's when federal prison goes bad. And we don't want that. We want you to get home to your families as quickly as possible. Avoid problems, avoid drama, if your highest value is freedom. What we know so far, the final rule for the First Step Act time credits was published about a week ago. We have no experience with how the BOP will implement the rule in practice, but we will continue to monitor these developments. Fortunately, I think more than ever, the BOP is being held accountable to ensure they're doing it the right way. Without that checks and balances and accountability, they would never enforce this law. Here's what we know so far. The First Step Act authorized the Bureau of Prisons to put in place procedures for reducing earned time credits when people violate programming rules. BOP also put in place procedures for restoring lost earned time credits. That's important, because if it unfortunately happens to you, at least there's a procedure to restore those credits. It's not like it's gone forever. Again, based on a person's individual progress after the date of the rule violation. What is the progress? It's subjective. We're dealing with human beings. The BOP has now published the procedures for such cases. The BOP will implement loss of earned time credits procedures to the existing prison disciplinary process. People who lose credits can seek a review through the administrative remedy program. I touched on that a few minutes ago. People can lose their credits if they violate the requirements or rules of an approved program or productive activity. According to the BOP, an inmate will not be considered to be successfully participating if that inmate refuses to participate in or otherwise violates conditions, rules, or requirements of programs or productive activities recommended based on the inmate's risk and needs assessment. Just sounds like bureaucratic talk, doesn't it? Also, according to the BOP, temporary interruptions in participation that are unrelated to an inmate's refusal to participate or other violation of programming requirements or that are authorized by the Bureau, such when a recommended program or activity is unavailable or at full enrollment, will not affect the inmate's ability to earn credits. This is important because with COVID, for example, some programs are shut down. As I feel this, whenever she put in my hair, it's hard as a rock. That's important because if thing programming is shut down due to COVID, or if there are things of that nature, at least from what we're hearing, it's not going to totally affect someone's ability to earn credits. And that's important because, what if staff has a bad day or they don't like this law? They can say, we're shutting down all programming and things of that nature. So this is really being created in such a way where people are going to get the maximum credits they're allowed. And there was concern for so long over the implementation of the rule. And it looks like because they've been pushed, they're going to finally do it the way the law was intended. The Bureau of Prison writes, if an eligible inmate refuses to participate in the recommended program or activity, engages in misconduct that results in removal from the program or activity through placement in housing, or disrupts or fails to follow the conditions, parameters, or rules of the program or activity, accrual of time credits is paused until the inmate complies with programming or completes the disciplinary sanction. That disciplinary sanctions could be, going to the hole for 30 days, things of that nature. This methodology, I can't even say the word. I'm a paid public speaker and I cannot say this word on our YouTube channel. I'd stop the video and do it again, but I'm not going to. I'm going to fail and embarrass myself in front of all of you when I recognize and say I am unable to say this word. My degree from USC is utterly useless. This blank is intended to guide inmates back to the appropriate pro-social goals of programming and act as a deterrent for future misconduct, giving inmates a direct incentive to maintain clear conduct. And look, to the extent they're going to incentivize prisoners to behave properly, that they want to. Prisons care about two things: security of the institution, keeping costs down. Keep that in mind as you're preparing to go to prison. Keep in mind as you're working your way through this odyssey of federal prison. Failure to complete an assigned activity may itself constitute an infraction. Failing to accept a mandatory work assignment, for example. In those cases, the failure to complete a mandatory activity may result in the loss of time credit. So in other words, if your job is to work and you're going to get credits for work and you choose not to work, or you do what so many knuckleheads do in prison, which is to pay somebody else to do their job because they're too lazy to do their job for an hour a day, that is going to lead to, that's a disciplinary infraction to begin with, but it's also going to get you away from what your further goal should be, which is freedom. Unless you really like prison, you like hanging out all day and kind of walking the track and going to the chow hall, hanging out in the library and watching a lot of TV. For some dudes, they love it. If you're on the different path, if you're on the prison professor path, if you're on the accepting responsibility, developing a new record, improving your communication skills, growing your network, changing criminal thinking patterns, then you're going to do it differently. You're going to do your job. You're going to go to the programming. You're going to avoid problems. Failure to complete an assigned activity may itself constitute an infraction. I think I just read that twice. That's okay. It's worth saying twice, even though I clearly made a mistake and read the same thing twice. It will take about 12 months of clear conduct or 2 consecutive risks and needs assessments for a person to have part or all of the credits potentially restored. We addressed that earlier in the video. I'm not going to get into all of the prohibited acts and available sanctions because, again, this would be a longer video than is necessary if you're still watching this. Wow, very impressive. You must be really interested in the First Step Act and getting out of prison quickly. I'm always fascinated by the YouTube statistics, like how long someone's watching, like what percentage of 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Towards the end, there's like total drop off as I do my wrap up. Like everyone's gone in the last 30 seconds. If you're going to watch the last 30 seconds, I admire and I appreciate that. But I do want you to go, prison professors, jokes aside, to really understand these prohibited acts and sanctions and what you're forfeiting and just the costs of getting into severe, moderate, or really, significant problems. Okay, it's just too serious to make mistakes. What about court intervention as we wrap up here? People are starting to wonder to what extent they can take to court a dispute with the BOP over the calculation of earned time credits or the loss and restoration of credits. Some people have gone to court successfully and had that time applied. We are at the inception of this process, so a lot remains to be seen, though we're beginning to get some cases, as I just mentioned. Like in other areas, people will ask a federal judge to review the BOP's calculations of their earned time credits once they complete the administrative remedy process. That's important. You want to be able to exhaust remedies. A number of people on the compassionate release for COVID have gone directly to the judge without first exhausting remedies. And the judge is like, I can't rule on this. The inmate hasn't exhausted remedies. So you have to go through this kangaroo court type administrative remedy process. For this reason, we believe that courts are likely to defer to the BOP's calculation of First Step Act earned time credits when there is a dispute. But as we like to say in the prison professor's world, time will tell. Okay, let's wrap this baby up. This post is a reminder for everyone working on earned time credits that the BOP giveth and the BOP may taketh away. A person who violates the rules and requirements of an approved BOP First Step Act program or activity may lose these time credits. Restoration of some or all lost earned time credits requires that a person maintain clear conduct for 2 consecutive risk assessments. That is 1 year. In the same way that people wanting early release guard their 54 days by avoiding problems, they would do well to guard their earned time credits by abiding by all the program rules. For now, First Step Act earned time credits are real. It's a big deal. And they result in people's actually early release from prison, halfway houses, home confinement, and supervised release. 21 minutes. What do you think? You like it? So grateful that all of you are here and you're still watching. We want to help all of you get home from prison more quickly to make this experience a productive one. Just because you're serving time in prison does not mean you cannot make the time serve you. As cliche or corny as that may sound to all of you. And as I close, I'm not dumb. I know you don't want to go to prison, but unless you got a life at bop.gov, meaning life sentence, you are coming home, my friend, and life on the other side will be harder without values and skills and a network and an ability to articulate how and why you broke the law and what you were doing to become better. Use your time in prison productively. And if you can do that, life on the other end will be easier and better. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And thank you for engaging me. I'm so privileged and grateful and fortunate to be in this position to educate and teach. And I'd like to thank you, as I say it again, and my team for helping me produce this content that I hope some of you find valuable. You're awesome. Please keep coming back to get educated. Goodbye.